A correlation can answer this question. Does SAT score correlate with GPA? Ideally, I should say that SAT score should actually have an absolute zero. And I'm not sure if an SAT score can actually be zero, but in psychology and sociology, we might treat SAT score as if it did. Don't worry too much about that if you're new to understanding correlations. Just know that we would probably answer the question of does SAT score correlate with GPA by running a correlation. When I'm learning statistics and practicing it, and I've seen this in others as well, it's helpful to come up with hypothetical data and try to see if we see what we think we should be seeing. So I made up some hypothetical data. Let's imagine that we have several people in our sample, and we have their SAT score and their GPA score. Take a look here. We've got John, Paul, George, and Ringo. You might notice that they all have similar SAT scores. They're in the 700s. They also have GPAs that are in the 2s, 2.0 or 2.2. And their daughter Stella, she's got a 740 and a 2.2. This is imaginary, right? Not just, these are the Beatles and their daughter, right? Imaginary. They didn't have an SAT then. Then we have Fred, maybe it's Fred Astaire, who knows, 760 SAT and a 2.2 GPA, imaginary. And Marie Curie might have an 1100 SAT and a 4.0 GPA. She's a famous scientist. And then there's some other traditionally smart women, Hillary and Michelle. You might know their names from The Wives of Presidents, 1200 and 1200 SAT and GPA of 4.0 each. In research, we often eyeball our data or we just look at it like that. Now, when you look at it, do you happen to notice that as SAT score increases in some people, their GPA also increases? You can see that in this data. So that suggests we're probably going to have a significant correlation statistically, but we haven't run any statistics, so we can't do it yet. We might want to run a correlation which tells us whether there's a linear relationship between two variables and whether it's positive or negative. In this scatter plot, you'll see SAT score here and GPA here. And you can look, there's some people who had SAT scores between 600 and 800, and they tended to have the GPAs of 2.0 and 2.2. There were some people who had SAT scores between 1,000 and 1,200, and their scores for GPA were something like 4.0 each, right? Yeah, they were both 4.0. You can see that. An SPSS output or printout looks like this. So you see there will be your two variables of interest, SAT score and GPA. You'll see the words Pearson correlation if you ran a bivariate correlation of a Pearson nature, and SIG or significance two-tailed, and N has to do with sort of how many people are in your sample or in your analyses. So SAT score should be highly correlated with SAT score. That's just, don't worry too much about that. You really want to focus on, is SAT score correlated with GPA? So we're going to see something interesting in here, and we're going to see the same thing here, SAT and GPA. So let's take a look. Notice that the Pearson correlation, you see right over here, this 0.99 and those two stars, that tells us that this is a very high correlation. And over here, this 0.00, that tells us something about significance. Our p-value is less than 0.05. R equals 0.99 and p is less than 0.05. So you may know that this means we have a strong statistically significant result. Let me tell you some more. We would write a results statement in a research report that would say something like this. SAT score is correlated with GPA, comma, and then italics R equals 0.99, comma, P in italics less than 0.05. Or maybe we'll say there's a strong statistically significant linear correlation between SAT score and GPA, comma, R equals 0.99, comma, P less than 0.05. This is how we write a result statement again. You can feel free to use these words. It's not plagiarism if you say the same type of wording here. Like you can say in your own student paper, there's a strong statistically significant linear correlation between and whatever your two variables are. In case this helps, I also put these together for you. Here's the raw data in a spreadsheet. Here's what a scatter plot looked like. I did this in Excel. And here's what the SPSS printout looks like. What is a correlation anyway? What do you want the R value to be? Well, an R value ranges from negative 1.00 to plus 1.00. If the R value is close to plus 1.00 or negative 1, that's great. That means you are going to have a statistically significant linear relationship between your two variables. So in the example I use of R equals 0.99, that's very, very high. It's great. I've never seen that in any of my data. P less than 0.05, if you see the p value is low and under 0.05 and the r value is close to plus 0.100 or negative 1, that's great too. Now the purpose of the correlation, just as a reminder, is to indicate the extent to which there's a linear relationship between two continuous numeric variables.